I'm Maverick Miller, and this is Richard Hayfley.
Lovely.
Hayfley. Okay, and we're gonna do an interview. All right. So first question: What were you doing before you joined the military?
I was going to Hayden High School in Topeka, Kansas.
Okay. Did you have a sweetheart over there?
I think by that time I probably did. Oh, you mean overseas?
Or no. At the.
At Topeka?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I had several.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted. I enlisted the day that I was 17.
What motivated you to enlist?
I wasn't doing anything positive with my life. And I had to have my parents' signature. And my mother decided that I was probably better off in the service than I was at school.
Did any friends enlist with you?
No.
Where
A lot of people became friends who enlisted with me.
Oh yeah. Where did you go to join?
Kansas City.
And you chose the Navy,
Yes.
right? Okay. Was it like you thought it would be?
I didn't have any perception of what it would be like.
Oh, I see.
But, after being a Boy Scout and things like that, I knew that there was a regimentation.
Do you remember anything from boot camp?
Yeah. It was cold. I was taken to Farragut, Idaho in October. And Farragut, Idaho was already cold. And one of the things I learned to do at Farragut, Idaho was to drink coffee. Anything that was hot and would get you warm from the inside out. That was what you wanted to do.
So you would say boot camp was pretty hard?
No. I was in a company of 120 people. And, well, without being braggadocious, I was one of the best.
So does that mean you did advanced training?
No, the training was the same.
Oh, okay.
But,
You're just like at top of your class?
well, I wasn't the top, but I was within a few of the top of 120 men.
Okay. So, I brought a map here, and if you want to draw, like, where did you go during the war?
During the war, oh my. Let's see. Australia. I can hardly see Hawaii.
Oh.
Well, I left the United States, and the first thing we did was we hit a big storm. And that's hard on a Kansas person to hit a storm at sea. But I got through that without really getting sick. There was a little malaise, but not much.
That's good.
And we came to Pearl Harbor and stayed a little while. And then my destination was determined here at San Francisco. And from Hawaii, I went to the Philippines. Oops. And I was scheduled to go to Harbor Entrance Control at Manila Bay. But MacArthur hadn't taken Manila Bay yet. So they took us into Samar.
That's a little map. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll just say that's Samar.
Okay.
And then we stayed there for a couple of weeks while the soldiers and the Seabees did some work on Corregidor. You've never heard of a Corregidor.
No.
It was a big name in World War II. That's where MacArthur and all of his officers headquartered. And that's where I was scheduled to go when I left San Francisco. So we came over to Samar and stayed in a camp where there was nothing but tents until they felt that we were pretty secure in up here in the northern part of the Philippines, Manila Bay, and
Yeah.
You've seen pictures of the island rock at the mouth of the Mediterranean. Well, Corregidor is situated in a similar place in the Philippines.
Okay.
They have a very small entrance, and we were in the middle of that entrance, and we kept track of all of the ship traffic that came in, came out. And you might be interested in knowing that I had a Japanese ship surrender to me.
Really? Cool.
It isn't all shit. I was our watch. I was a signalman. Do you know what a signalman does? Have you seen pictures where there's lights flashing off and on between ships? That's what I did, using the Morse code and flashing lights. And while I didn't tell you that I was in Eureka, California for nearly a year.
Doing training?
We didn't do any formal training there. When I left boot camp, they offered to send me to a signalman school. And I said I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be something like a torpedo man, something really romantic.
Yeah.
Well, they said I wasn't ready for that. I didn't really know it, but they protected a 17-year-old boy until he was 18. And so that's why they sent me to what they called a section base at Eureka, California, which is 60 miles or so from Oregon. And the only ship we had was a converted PT boat, and it was an air sea rescue thing. We had air in Tillamook, Oregon. I don't know why I remembered Tillamook. But anyhow, the aircraft there were all dirigibles, lighter than aircraft.
Oh, okay.
And they had the capacity to drop bombs and use machine guns, and so did the boat. They didn't drop bombs, but they had torpedoes and some firepower. But I spent nearly a year there. And while I was there, I looked things over and I told them, you know, that I thought I'd like to be a signalman. And although I had passed up the opportunity to be a signalman and go to school, I did it the hard way. I just learned it on my own. And so when it came time for me to go overseas, they sent me back down to San Francisco. And when they were far enough along in the invasion of the Philippines, they started us out. But then they put us on an air draft from Samar, which is the big southern island, to Manila. And they hadn't taken our island yet. They were still taking Corregidor. So they put me on a schedule with the harbor entrance control, and I was attached to a signal division that swept the whole harbor. And at times like that was a lot of ships.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Mm-hmm. So what do you remember about the other people in your unit?
I made friends with some of them.
Did you guys keep in touch after the war?
With, let's see, Don Dickerhoff and I corresponded. He came on the ship about the time the war ended. And he's the one who really motivated me to go to college, because he said, "Oh, you can't do that. You don't have the discipline." And I said, "You can't tell me that I can't do that." You know, I just got on my high horse and said I can. And when I first got to Corregidor, there were bodies all over the place. They had been killed with what did they call them? The torches.
Flamethrowers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot of cleanup to do, and we spent a lot of time gathering our gear, setting up the watchtower up on top of Corregidor. Control. They said, "We need somebody to stand watch down in the basement." And I said, "That's what I do, you know." And so they sent me down to the basement to stand watch. And I said, "What am I standing watch over?" And they said, "Money." And this was at the Manila Hotel, which was owned by General MacArthur. And so I went down, and here's money. You know how big a big dance area is? They had money stacked that high. And I flipped through some of it. There was a 20,000 peso note. And the most interesting thing that I saw, and I wish that I had been able to get a hold of some of it. Well, I could have put it in my pocket. There wasn't anybody to say I couldn't, but it just wasn't my nature. a bunch of $5 bills. Had Lincoln's face on it. Same size. At the bottom it said Japanese invasion money. Wouldn't that have been something to pass out to friends?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be crazy.
But I can't believe how much money there was down there. Now, it was money that the United States soldiers had taken from the Filipinos and exchanged it for our invasion money.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't lose anything, but a lot of money. Means that they wanted to surrender.
Oh wow. So, now for the camera, could you tell us again what you just said? So, sorry, she wasn't ready.
Well, I was up here on watch and I saw this light out on the horizon, and they were flashing a QVY. The Q signals are international,
Mm-hmm.
and I called down, had them look in the book, and it said that we would like to surrender.
Wow.
So a few hours later, a Japanese hospital ship that had lost, or they had used up all of their medicine, and they were not able to keep their people alive. So they came in. And now I just tell everybody that I had a Japanese ship surrender to me. And technically it's true, but it is terribly important. But they came in and they went clear into the port director's tower, which is probably 40 miles in there, and they got help.
That's good. So, what did you do to pass the time?
To pass the time.
Yeah, or did you have any free time, or?
Well, yeah, I had some free time, and one of the things I did is I went to school.
In your free time?
In Iowa. In Iowa, they had set up a school where you could write in, get books, and then they'd send you tests to take. So,
Materials like
and
that?
I thought maybe I should try to get a few more high school hours because I didn't do anything in my senior year.
Did you ever go to a USO show?
Oh, sure. Yeah, whenever I could, because they were really professional.
Really?
But as I say, Corregidor was a pretty big name, although the island was not large.
Mm-hmm. Did you keep a journal or a diary?
No.
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 You remember any pranks or special jokes or anything like that, or did you didn't do that?
I don't know. Nothing that I could talk about, I'm sure.
All right. Do you remember Victory Day in Europe and then Victory Day in Japan?
Sure.
When the war ended?
Sure.
So,
And another thing that happened that just comes to my mind is General MacArthur, before he left Corregidor, went out. There's a tiny island just, I guess just east of Corregidor. But between those two islands, he sunk $2 million in silver pesos.
oh wow.
And one day, a minesweeper dropped anchor there, and I was curious as to what they were doing, so I PVT'd just a private message between two signalmen. It's kind of like using the clock, I suppose. Wasn't anything official about it, but of all things, the guy on the other side went through boot camp with me. And he invited me out, and I went out to the ship, and we visited about what we had done together, so on. And when I left, he said, "I've got a flashlight here I'd like for you to have." And I took it and stuck it in my back pocket, went back to the base, and when I tried to use it, it didn't work. But it had, probably 25 or 30 silver pesos that they had brought up. And I was not a sailor. So I gave those silver pesos away to people who were, and they had crustaceans, stuff from the sea on them.
Oh.
I don't know whether they, the people I gave them to, polished them or not, but they'd be a whole lot more valuable with the crustaceans on them.
Yeah.
And when I wrote to my folks, I had, with the complimentary clothes, I had written Mom and said, if I'm here, that's what I'll use. If I'm there, that's what I'll use. And Corregidor was one of the places that, so when I wrote letters to her, I used that complimentary ending.
Oh.
And it just so happened that my brother, who was in the Merchant Marines, was running material from one part of the Philippines to the other. And so I knew he was there. I knew the name of his ship. And one day, sure enough, it came into Manila Bay, and I got a hold of him and made arrangements to meet my brother in Manila.
Cool.
It was.
All right. So, what was it like after the war?
Well, after the war, they took me off the island and put me on a an oiler, USF Monongahela. All the oilers were named after a river. And we started running from Manila all the way around through the Java Sea and through those islands that they're forever. You have to really be careful going through there because the water is shallow and the islands are many. But we went through those islands. It doesn't show them very well.
Yeah.
I suppose. Right in here.
Oh. Okay.
And then we went up into the Persian Gulf and stopped at Bahrain, filled up with oil, and we became, I guess, a floating filling station.
Oh, cool.
Then we might go back to Manila, or we might go up, since the war was over, we might go up to places in Japan, We had both sides of Japan, and furnished fuel for them. And then I came home. We had gone to Sasebo, which is over on the west side. One of the things that happened while I was in there, we went through the worst recorded typhoon up to that time. I don't know what the direction of the wind was, but we had long-range navigation gear, and we plowed against that wind for 3 days, and we were in the same place after 3 days that we were when we started.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of a thrill, I'll tell you, to sit on the top of a 50-foot wave. I don't know how tall they were, but we'd go down, hit the bottom of that wave, and the nose of the ship, the bow would just keep going, and pretty soon it would stop and start shaking.
Huh.
And then up it would come.
Oh, wow.
And we spent 3 days doing that.
Wow. So, what work did you do after the war, and how did your career develop after that?
After, you mean after I got home?
Yeah, like when you came home.
I worked at a packing house and went to school. Those two things. I worked at a packing house 8 hours a day and went to school 4 or 5 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And I still wound up with a B average, but it was hard to do because of the number of hours that I had to spend on the job. Never lived at that.
Oh, okay. So, what were you going to school for?
Because Don Dickerhoff told me that I couldn't.
But, like, what kind of degree were you trying to get?
I got a degree in education.
Oh, I see.
A BA, Bachelor of Arts.
Okay. Do you belong to any veterans organizations or associations?
I belong to the American
American Legion?
American Legion.
Oh, okay.
But we don't have any other
Oh.
veterans organizations here.
Do you go to any reunions?
Veterans reunions?
Yeah.
No.
Oh. All right. Let's see.
No, it's kind of like I gave it up when I left it. And I came home, and I live in Topeka, so I went to Washburn University, which is fortunately an excellent school.
So before the war, did you have any experience on boats, or
No,
you just?
Kansas people wouldn't recognize a boat.
And I think that concludes our interview. So thank
Yeah.
you. Do you have anything else you want to tell?
Well, when I was in school, the first 2 years you have to take a lot of courses that are required. But after that, I got to thinking about what I should do with my life. And I came up with the conclusion that I may like to teach. Because I thought that maybe what I had to offer was worth passing on. So I worked in that direction, and I was taking a lot of English, so I became basically an English teacher. I also got a major in history, so I was a history teacher, which made me qualified to teach psychology, all kinds of things
Yeah.
at Ulysses High School.
Really? That's cool. What years were you in the war?
I was in the war from I was in there for what they called a kiddie cruise. Kiddy. That's what. I don't know whether that's an official name, but everybody said that I was on a kiddie cruise. Which means when you join, you have to be underage. And I joined the day that I was 17. And I had to have parents' permission.
Mm-hmm.
So, a kiddie cruise lasts from the time that you join to 21.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I spent 2 years after the war in the Navy. You know, it was part of what I agreed to do when I signed. But I thought, I thought that I probably had something that was worth passing on.
Yeah.
So, with that seed, I decided to become a teacher, and I taught for 9 years here. And then I found out that my bright kids, and my 2 oldest kids were brighter than I was. They were really smart. And I didn't see any way that I could send them to college on a teacher's salary.
Yeah.
So, since I had woodworking experience, I became a builder.
Really? That's cool.
And I've built here and there. I've added to places. I've redone a lot of places. I've started from scratch in a lot of places. And then, see, I think I was 66 when I retired.
Huh.
And I am now, what would you guess?
Oh, I don't know. Like 80 or so? I don't know.
88.
88? Oh, wow.
I'm Mr. Piano this year. So 88 keys.
That's cool. Well, I think we got everything we need.
Yeah,
so.
I don't. My life wasn't very exciting.
Oh, it was plenty exciting.
But yeah, they said that I had the choice of making one more trip back into Bahrain, or they had a brand new cruiser that was headed back for Washington, and I could just sit on the edge of that until we got home. And I said, well, I think I'd like to do that. And then I found out later that the ship went from Bahrain up into the Mediterranean Sea, stopped at a lot of places, and came to the New York area. And I never got all the way around to the world, but I would have if I'd stayed for one more cruise.
Well, that's a really amazing story. Thanks for sharing with us.
Well, I wish I had more recollections. You know, I was in the Philippines for a long time, and at the time my religion was Catholic, and so they were glad to take me a lot of places. You know, and I went to church with them, and anytime I was free, I had something. They had something for me to do, and it included a lot of things. But we had church services over there that we didn't have here. They were different.
Mm.
But I was, since I was Catholic, I was accepted and taken to a lot of places that people didn't get to go to.
Well, that's neat.
For instance,